Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Deputy. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's talk about a big thing in this episode, and that being kind of like the overall case, and that's basically this girl named Isabel ends up stealing a bag from someone which she shouldn't have stolen from, because it turns out this guy's like part of a gang and everything, and it's like a crap ton of money. But it turns out this girl has a connection to Charlie. Can we actually kind of get a little more insight into Charlie? Apparently, before this whole deputy thing, she actually she taught a whole bunch. She was a teacher, and so Isabella is one of her students where it's like, yeah, like, if you ever need me, ever in trouble, you come to me. And Isabel calls her, and it's like, obviously Charlie's kind of, scared in this situation, because it's like, someone, it's like, because for her, she already went through so much losing Luna, like someone else that she cares about, she's not about to let that happen to. Because for Isabel, it's like, this is someone who kind of had a rough patch in life, and the fact of the matter is, Isabel was slowly turning things around. She's close to getting her GED and everything. So this is someone who kind of, things weren't always the best in life, but someone who's turning around, and Charlie's not going to let something like, something happen to someone who's trying to change things around, And so she ends up getting help from, Bishop, Cade, and even Bill in this case. Because it actually kind of sucks, because because even Joseph a comments like, oh, kind of messed up home life she comes from. It's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is, Isabel basically has her mom, what's her name, Josie? Her foster mom, Josie. It's more so like an arrangement, because it's like, oh, she picked a foster mom that wouldn't arise who wouldn't ask too many questions, like, oh, I'm gonna do my own thing, and you don't worry too much about what I'm doing. You just worry about getting, the checks, from for taking, Isabella. So that's all that really is. So it's kind of more of an arrangement, and so. This guy is so intent on getting her, because they end up finding out later on that basically this guy's just trying to rise his way through the ranks, because Cade ends up taking Charlie and Joseph to see this guy named George, who's kind of connected to this world. And basically he's reluctant to talk at first, because it's like, oh, I don't know Isabel and I don't know you, so I'm not going to talk. But Charlie ends up bringing up a picture of his daughter. Apparently she had died, at such a young age, because it's like, if someone could have, saved her from that, world and everything, maybe she, where she'd be right now, she didn't kind of get mixed up in all that. And so that's the same thing for Isabel. Isabel's just like your daughter. She's mixed up in she's an innocent girl that's mixed up in some terrible stuff, so help us. But he was basically insinuating that the dude, his name's Tony, is just someone that's kind of rising through the ranks. And so luckily they were able to track, because of Bishop, they were able to track down the phones of other people he was contacting. So Bill and Kay sit on them, while Charlie and Joseph, and I like that whole line between Charlie being like, oh, the fact of it, I do my best thinking when I'm driving, you do too, you will too. I think it's kind of like when you're in the process of something, it's like when you spend enough time in the car, it gives you the quiet and stuff like that, kind of keeping your eyes all over the place, kind of, it's the perfect place to kind of get your brain thinking, because it's like, probably, because it's a thing probably of like sitting in one spot, like just sitting, driving is one thing, but probably just sitting in the department, just waiting, it probably just make you go a little stir crazy. But at least driving around, you feel like you're doing something, so it makes you a little more active. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I could be reading too much into it, but luckily everything kind of ends out soundly, because they're able to, well, sadly Tony ends up tracking Isabel down to the library, but obviously Bill, Kay, Joseph, and Charlie end up showing up in time. Isabel ends up picking up the gun and then going to point it at the dude, but Charlie shows up to say, don't do it. You pull that trigger, you're basically throwing away your entire life. You're so close to getting your GED. Like the fact of it, because for Isabel, it's like, obviously, to get by, that's why she did what she did. She sold the bag because her friend Tina was like, you should do this, because they don't have enough money, they barely have enough money to like get themselves like full-blown meals. So she was desperate, to kind of, because she didn't know what was in the bag. She thought like, oh, it'd just be something I can pawn or whatever to get some money. But it's like, don't throw away your entire life for him. You have this opportunity, like, don't throw it away. Because she's like, I'm just tired of living this way. And, Charlie was like, you won't have to keep, just don't let this kind of, because if you do, you're going to go away for like killing him, because despite the fact that he was trying to kill her, she still is going to end up killing him, and because also it won't look good because he's unarmed at the time too, so it'd be a thing of like you were no longer being threatened, especially because the cops were there, so it turned into that whole thing. But luckily she lowered the gun and they were just able to arrest him, so luckily everything did work out in the end. But I did like the fact is, a lot of interesting things were kind of introduced in this episode. Like, obviously, I like the fact is, Bishop is still kind of caught up on the Genevieve thing. I meant to bring this up last episode, but I'll go ahead and talk about it now. I get the feeling like when this all said and done, I think Genevieve might change her mind about Bishop. Maybe. We'll see. It'd be kind of nice if in the long run, like, Genevieve's like, I had some time to think, and I'm sorry I reacted the way I did. You're still the person I love, no matter, how you identify. I hope it's like that, but maybe it is. Maybe, even if Genevieve does decide, maybe, Bishop will be like, no, I'm not going to take you back. Who knows? We'll have to see. But the fact is, Bishop was like, hey, kid, I got to tell you something. He's like, don't worry. The fact of the matter is, Bill gave me the lowdown, I got you. And I'm like, oh. And if anyone gives you any trouble, come to me. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Like, Kay being kind of a big brother. I like that. That's actually kind of pretty neat. But even kind of, it's like, you don't just, don't stay here, to clear your head. It's like, come out, hit the waves with me sometime. That's the best way to kind of clear your head. I'm like, oh, like I said, it's so cool. But the fact of the matter is, along with that, obviously there's the situation with Bill, bringing up the fact is, looking at Charlie being like, the fact of the matter is, you do so much work that people might not really recognize like the good that you've done, because it's like, oh, you worked with kids beforehand, you were a teacher. He's like, I didn't know about that. And the fact of the matter is, it's a situation of how do you know what a kid really needs? Like how the balance of being stern without pushing them too hard. It's kind of like, it's like Charlie kind of found that balance. And looking at her relationship with Isabel, it showed Bill, and he was just saying like the fact it was a nice, representation of Charlie is kind of what Bill saw with that whole situation. So he's like, oh, kind of offering her like a position, because it's like she well deserves a raise and stuff like that, but she doesn't want it. At first I was like, are you turning it down because you don't want it, because I thought it was like because you felt bad because you kind of were double agent for Jerry. I thought that's what it came down to, but it's like, nope, it wasn't just that. It was the fact is that for her, it's like she likes where she is right now, because she's like, Joseph has the potential to be a great deputy. The fact of the matter is, I want to stay here and finish my job. And, Bill's like, see what I mean? Like, the fact of the matter is, because she was saying, like, basically, I'm just doing my job, and like basically Bill's trying to say like it isn't a just situation. You go above and beyond to your job, like what you kind of treat as just something simple. And I think Bill kind of respects that about a person. And the fact is that she's still willing to put Joseph through the ringer, because she can see what he's capable of. He's still green around the gills, but the fact is she's kind of going to put in the time and effort. And Bill's like, this promotion is always going to be here waiting for you. And so Charlie kind of turns down Jerry's invite to that party and everything. He's like, the fact is, going to this isn't just an invite to a party. It means you're going to be by my side. Meaning when I get elected, I'm going to be looking out for you. She's like, if you get elected. And he's like, no, when I get elected. But she's like, no, I just want to stay behind. I want to train, my, training. And he's like, yeah, I totally understand. I respect that. But do know that when it's all said and done, you're basically, he goes off and goes like, oh, the fact of the matter is, if you're not with me, you're someone that's in my way. And she's like, I'm glad to hear it, sir. And just kind of smiles and walks on. I'm like, you didn't have to be an asshole about it. You could have just simply done thing. I understand and I respect your decision, but it's more so. But it's there's such a threat behind it. But if you're not by my side, I will destroy you. It's literally that. And I'm like, why do you have to be an asshole about it? You could have just respected her decision, but it's just like, if she's not with you, she's against you. And it's like, oh, don't come crying to me when I do win and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, come on, you don't have to be a dick about it. So there's that whole situation. Because another aspect to this episode, another part of this is the fact is we get introduced to D.A. Riley, who is played by Jamie Ray Newman. I was like, I want to, obviously, Eureka, Punisher. I want to say Midnight Texas was the most recent thing I'd seen her in. I feel like there was something more recent. But, well, I'm about to say, that also depends, because the Magicians, it depends on the timing. The Magicians and because she plays Irene, on the Magician. I was like, I knew there was something else I remembered her from. But regardless, the fact is she's a DA and she's coming to Bill about the whole like, oh yeah, there's that detective you arrested that's a dirty cop. Yeah, she basically doesn't want to go through the whole thing because it's like, oh, it can turn into a whole nasty public fiasco. It's like, why not have like your department and that department kind of come together and we'll kind of sweep this under the rug. He'll kind of just disappear. And Bill's like, no, he did a terrible thing. He's connected to murders, like he did some terrible stuff, and you want to just kind of let him go. Like, how was that? You know, because like the fact of the matter is kind of, why are we just going to let him slide on the terrible stuff that he done? And the fact of the matter is she tries to spin it to be like, oh, the terrible stuff that builds up in a sense of like, oh, you got the, because of the way Joseph was treated by that department, like had guns pulled on him. And the fact is that he came to you to look into this investigation makes it seem like, oh, like Joseph might have been, you know, petty, a way to get back at that department, which, you know, he's immediately like, well, one, you messed up because you brought my family into it. Two, it's like, the dude is guilty of it. You can say whatever the hell you want to about get all into like semantics and, you know, about it, but it's like, he was wrong. He actually committed the act in the first place. So it's like, how can you try to spin it like that? I mean, for one, it's like your job would be about justice and like that. But then at the grand scheme of things, the whole point they're kind of trying to make is like, you can tell that she's doing stuff, trying to make political moves, and she doesn't want to do anything that would, much like Jerry, it seems like it's more so about a political thing where it seems like you're just trying to look out what's best for your career and not what's best for the department type of situation. But the real kick in the face is when it turns out that she's running for sheriff, which I was like, huh. I mean, I guess I just never thought you could go from DA to sheriff. it just didn't seem like a job position. I mean, it almost seemed, well, I guess sheriff could be, I don't know if being DA is a higher position than being sheriff. I mean, you have probably more oversight as a sheriff, but it's like, I think more so than anything is kind of give a middle finger to Jerry and Bill. I don't know. It just seems so interesting. Like, I wonder, is there a deeper reason behind that? Because, well, for her, it's that she talks about the fact that the way things have kind of been run, like a very cowboy thing, which Bill's like, I've always kind of been favorable. He says something along the lines of, like, I've always, like, you know, favorable to, like, the cowboy approach to everything. But it's like, she thinks, like, the system is kind of messed up, so she wants to come in because she's like, it's been too in-house. Basically, people rose up to the rank of sheriff. It's like, maybe someone from the outside can bring a new perspective to the whole situation and bring everything kind of back to some form of order and stuff like that. But just like, you know, it's just like, because even he was like, yeah, the fact of the matter is you came in here yesterday, didn't even give any hint that you were planning on doing this. And she's like, oh, it must have slipped my mind. Hell, even to the point that Jerry was like, we can't let an outsider run this. And it's like, that's so interesting because it's like, because even Bill's like, oh, for the first time, Jerry, we actually agree, because Jerry's like, this isn't about us anymore. And Bill's like, from the very beginning, it was never about us. You made it about us, you know? But, which even behind Bill's back, Jerry's over there, hey, Riley, we can take Bill down. The fact of the matter is, for her, it's like, taking down Bill, winning against Bill is kind of a maybe. Going against Jerry and winning, she's like, oh, that's a guarantee I'm going to win. You know, for her, it's like, oh, you know, the future is, you know, basically the women are the future, essentially. And just kind of, because I think it's been a boys' club for so long, because obviously a lot of people in that position, you know, Jerry as well, Bill are like men. So it's like, oh, it's time to shift stuff up. So it's interesting. Just the fact is that she's not buying into Jerry's bullshit. That's why I'm kind of bummed that it seemed like, Charlie kind of got caught up in it a little bit, but obviously she's kind of backed away because because I think for her it's a situation of like, I want to earn my position and not just kind of get it. Just, yes, I deserve this position. I deserve to raise all the good work that I've done. But I think it's the whole thing about like, because I forgot what it was that, what Charlie had said to Isabel, because Isabel, like, I know exactly what you're going to say. It's basic. I forgot what the word it was she was saying. That basically it means doing stuff without people really knowing what you're doing, that you don't need the recognition. It's like just doing the right thing, even without people knowing that you're doing it, you know? So I think maybe that kind of got in Charlie's head too about it, the reason why she kind of handled this whole situation the way she did. But presents a very interesting situation. I would have never expected there to be a third party in this race. I mean, technically speaking, there's technically only two people in the race currently, because Jerry's made it official he's running, and obviously now D.A. Riley's Carol has made her point that she running, but Bill's still kind of in the, I don't know if I'm running or not. I think he's halfway there, but he's a little hesitant to take that step forward just because of his family and everything. Because I think it's just the politics of it. But the good he's able to do, I think he's fine. It's definitely going to be an interesting element to this whole thing. Another aspect to this is the whole situation with Cade and Teresa. Roberto and Camilla are spending time with their grandmother, which their grandmother comes over and hugs, Teresa and Cade. At first, I was wondering if this was a situation of her simply because, like, they made it clear last episode she just wants to visit. But part of me was wondering, like, oh, is this supposed to be like, oh no, she's going to try and get custody? But it seems like it's not that. She just wanted to spend time with them. Like, they don't really know her that well. And obviously, Teresa and Kate are like, yeah, it's quiet. They're like, yeah, I know, it's weird. You can tell they're so excited when Roberto and Camilla come back. They're like, oh, how'd you have fun and everything? Yeah. Oh, where'd you leave your... She's like, yeah, I left it at grandma's. Like, she said we could see her next week. That's okay, right? And they're like, because you could see how much they were just like, for them being gone for like part of a day, so who knows? But I think it's also a worry that, if they spend more time with the grandma, maybe they want to spend more time with her than actually be with them. Because we also learned too, because I was also worried about this last episode. I was like, whose mom is she? She's like, she's their mom's mom. Because I'm about to say, if that was their dad's mom, that probably would have been a whole complicated thing. I mean, granted, we don't know how much family he has left, because they could try and go for some, custody of the kids. Jeez, I just struggle for that word so long. But getting back to it, I think that's why they're kind of worried, because because I think, even though they've adopted the kids, I think it would turn into a nasty thing, because like she as a grandmother could probably still have legal rights. I think she just wants to spend time with them, but I think it's a thing of like, what if they kind of get more attached to her? Like, what we get so accustomed to having the kids around, what if we kind of lose them? And what if they want to spend more time with, the grandmother, because she's actual family by blood, so it might turn into that thing. But the fact is that no one kind of came to claim them at first must mean that there's no one on his side. Like, I'm wondering why the grandmother stepped into the picture now. Maybe she only, just found out or something. I don't know. Because apparently, like, her and her daughter hadn't spoken in a long time, so it was probably that type of situation. So it's probably like she didn't hear about it until recently. But that makes me think, like, maybe none of their dad's side of the family is still alive, because, like, no one came to get the kids at any point in time. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about. Ultimately, we'll have to, wait and see where all that kind of goes. Another interesting aspect to this episode is the whole situation with Bill and Wyatt. It's actually kind of cool. He's like, oh, it's the badge, isn't it? It's pretty intimidating. But the fact of the matter, he's like, I'm not going to interrogate you, but I will ask some questions. And it's just kind of like, oh, like basically at the end of the day, he was kind of like, well, you know that I know that you know that I know that I know what it's like to be a teenage boy. And the fact of the matter, and he's like, as long as you show respect and do everything, as long as there's no surprises, we're good. And then Maggie's just staring at him like, you're an asshole, Dad. And I love that whole conversation between Paula's mom and Bill, where it's like, oh yeah, like my husband, obviously, like Paula's dad didn't like you. He was like, what? No, he loved me. And it's, Paula's just talking about the fact is, I respect her being kind of, old enough and smart enough to kind of make decisions of her own. Because obviously if you don't, your kids will kind of rebel against you, which Bill's like, okay, I will. But afterwards, I'm calling Jorge because we're going to have a talk about this. About the fact is he didn't like me? What? But then it turns into a whole situation of, it's like, because obviously for Paula, it's like they're both so stubborn, both Maggie and Bill. But it also comes down to the fact is, it's like, because it's even something Bill brings up with Kay, because it's like, yeah, imagine your daughter is out dating. It's like, my daughter's 8. It's like, all right, add 6 more years, and she's dating some guy named Wyatt. It's like, oh, the boyfriend? It's like, yeah. It's like you try to do like the best you can. He's worried that, like, because obviously Maggie kind of holds it against him for going so hard at Wyatt, but at the same time, it's just, he's a father. He cares. And even Paula's mom was talking about the fact is of like, the relationship between a father and their daughter, like they get very overprotective and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, why didn't Dad show up? It's like, no, I wanted to get here ahead of time. It's like, because you're worried about me. She's like, yeah, because Paula's, worried about, because that's still a thing about like the hospital thing, because she was supposed to make cuts. I think it was like, didn't the dude give her like a month or something? Either that or she was going to get fired. So basically she has to make cuts, and obviously she's had a lot of stuff on her mind, because her mom was like traumatized. She's like, no, I just had a lot of stuff on my mind. So the fact of the matter is, it's kind of a situation of trying to find ways to cut stuff, but it's like either she cuts, funding for this particular department, or she ends up cutting some people's jobs, which I think it was like 10 jobs, and one of those jobs includes someone who's literally a year away from retirement. So it's like, but her mom is like basically telling her to look at things from a different perspective. So it's like, rather than worrying about how, Paula figures, rather than worrying about how to cut, save money, how about find a way for us to raise money? So I'm going to be interested to find out kind of where things kind of take her, on that front. There is a sweet situation between Bill and Maggie, though, where he's like, the fact of the matter is, he does apologize. It's like, I'm your dad, so I know I get a little, like, I'm a little overprotective about it. But she's like, I get it, Dad. I can't imagine what it's like having a daughter that's growing up. But the fact of the matter is, I am growing. I wish I could slow down for you, but I can't. So, but he's like, the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, I'm sorry. I kind of like, I do trust you and everything. And it's like, he's willing to give Wyatt another chance because he'd do anything for his daughter. So I thought that was kind of a beautiful resolve to that whole situation. And then obviously another element to this is Charlie looking out for Joseph. I love that whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, disassemble and basically check your shotgun to make sure that it's okay. He kind of disassembles it, kind of checks it. It's like, it works. She's like, all right, now do it again. And then he gets to ride, he's the one driving this time, and he's telling a deputy, keep your eyes on the, keep your eyes out there. And she's kind of smiling. Because she is kind of looking out for him and everything. Because I think Joseph kind of feels like she just pushes him sometimes. But other times I think he does recognize, like, but she is making me better at what I do. The problem is, what's the home dude's name? Carter. The fact is, the whole, lion tattoo thing that made me go, I think the fact is they made a point of that Joseph kind of points it out. I'm like, that's going to turn into something. I hope it isn't going to be a situation of like, oh, they're cowboy cops that are actually like secretly like doing some super shady shit behind the scenes. You kind of get that feeling because even Charlie was like, yeah, kind of stay away from them. He's like, I hear, she's like, no, make sure you're listening. And he's kind of like, so I don't know. That just seems like that's setting up something interesting, like what that is. Because I just got the inkling from the beginning where it seemed like, oh, that's kind of like Joseph kicking it with the bad crowd. So I'm curious to see if that ends up kind of continuing to be a thing or not. But I'm interested to ultimately see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode, especially this whole like Carol, Riley situation, because that's definitely going to kick this whole run for sheriff thing up a notch, So it's going to be interesting to see how that all ends up playing out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good